For centuries, historians have charted the rise and fall of great empires. They rise on the back of wealth, military might, and resources, but they often fall for the very same reason. This isn't just ancient history. It's a story playing out right now, a cautionary tale written in oil, power, and human suffering. It's the story of Venezuela and its long, tangled relationship with the United States. To understand our world today, we have to understand the black gold that has fueled progress and conflict for over a century, and how it created a geopolitical chessboard where nations are merely pawns. The relationship between the United States and Venezuela wasn't always one of conflict. For much of the 20th century, they were close partners, bound by a shared interest in oil. Venezuela, sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the planet, became a key supplier to the American market. U.S. companies invested heavily, and a steady stream of crude flowed north, fueling American cars and factories, but this partnership was always unequal. While Caracas elites grew wealthy, the benefits rarely trickled down to the majority of Venezuelans. This deep-seated inequality created a fertile ground for change. That change arrived in 1999, personified by one man, Hugo Chavez. A charismatic, controversial former paratrooper, Chavez swept to power on a wave of popular discontent. He promised a Bolivarian revolution, vowing to use Venezuela's vast oil wealth to uplift the poor and break free from American influence. He nationalized key industries, including oil, seizing assets from foreign corporations, and redirecting profits towards ambitious social programs. For a time, it seemed to work. Poverty rates fell, and Chavez became a hero to many across Latin America. But in Washington, he was viewed as a dangerous adversary, a new Castro on their doorstep. Tensions escalated. The U.S., concerned about the security of its energy supply and the rise of a hostile, left-wing government in its hemisphere, began to push back. Chavez's death in 2013 left a power vacuum. His successor, Nicolás Maduro, inherited a system entirely dependent on high oil prices. But then, global oil prices cratered. The socialist dream quickly turned into a dystopian nightmare. The national oil company, PDVSA, once a titan of the industry, crumbled under mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of investment. Production plummeted. Shelves in supermarkets went bare. Hospitals ran out of basic medicine. The economy entered a freefall, triggering one of the worst humanitarian crises in modern history. Millions of Venezuelans fled the country, creating a refugee crisis that destabilized the entire region. In response to what it deemed authoritarianism and human rights abuses under Maduro, the United States imposed crippling economic sanctions, aiming to choke off the government's revenue and force a change in leadership. These sanctions were a financial siege, cutting Venezuela off from international markets and further strangling its already dying oil industry. The country was isolated, broken, and desperate. A geopolitical powder keg waiting for a spark. That spark, according to intelligence analysts, nearly ignited in January of 2026. This is where the story shifts from documented history to a plausible, chilling scenario pieced together from classified briefings and insider leaks. In the frozen expanse of the Arctic, a new great game was unfolding. As polar ice caps melted, new shipping lanes and vast untapped resources were opening up. Russia, with its massive fleet of icebreakers and military bases, was asserting dominance. China, its polar Silk Road partner, was right there with them, pouring in investments. The U.S. military, its own Arctic capabilities lagging, watched with growing alarm. A new Cold War was being fought on the ice. Simultaneously, across the globe, tensions in the South China Sea reached a fever pitch. A minor skirmish over a disputed reef escalated rapidly, pulling in naval forces from the United States and China. The world held its breath as two superpowers stared each other down. Back in Washington, D.C., the National Security Council convened an emergency meeting. The situation was dire. The U.S. was facing the nightmare scenario, a potential two-front conflict against both Russia and China. Its strategic petroleum reserves were dwindling, and a global energy crisis was imminent. Every projection showed that without a new, massive, and reliable source of oil, the American economy and military machine would grind to a halt within months. All eyes turned to the map, to the one place on Earth with enough oil to change the game: Venezuela. The plan, codenamed Operation Bolivar's Shadow, was as audacious as it was desperate. It wasn't a traditional invasion. It was a 21st century coup, a hybrid of special operations, cyber warfare, and economic shock therapy. The first phase was digital. A specialized NSA team launched a targeted cyber attack, not on the country's infrastructure, but on the offshore bank accounts of a handful of key Venezuelan generals. Within hours, their illicit fortunes vanished. Simultaneously, secure back-channel communications were opened. The message was simple and brutal: the money is gone. Help us, and you'll get it back, with a bonus. Resist, and your financial ruin will be the least of your worries. For these generals, their loyalty was not to Maduro or his ideology, but to the wealth they had stolen from their own people. The choice was easy. As the generals secured the capital, a small, elite team of U.S. Special Forces, likely Delta Force, launched a swift, silent raid. Their target wasn't the presidential palace. It was La Casona, the presidential residence where Maduro was believed to be. The operation was precise. Over in minutes, Maduro was captured, not as a prisoner of war, but as a guest to be held for transitional negotiations. The official story was that he had voluntarily resigned for health reasons. It was a fiction, but one that the world, desperate to avoid a larger conflict, was willing to accept. An interim government, handpicked from the opposition and approved by the generals, was installed immediately. Their first official act: to formally invite U.S. technical advisors and energy companies to help rebuild and modernize Venezuela's oil industry. The siege was over. The oil was secured. The crisis was averted. This story, whether it's a future scenario or a reflection of past events, echoes throughout history. Think of the Roman Empire, its expansion fueled by the grain of Egypt and the gold of Spain. When those resources became insecure, the empire began to crumble. Or consider the British Empire, built on the trade routes of the East India Company. Control the resources, control the world. The United States, in the 21st century, found itself in a similar position, its global supremacy inextricably linked to its ability to secure oil. Venezuela, in this context, wasn't just a failed state, it was the ultimate strategic prize, a geopolitical lifeboat in a sea of uncertainty. The fall of Maduro, orchestrated not by a massive army but by a cyber attack and a handful of special operators, represents a new paradigm in global power dynamics. It's a lesson that is as old as civilization itself. Empires that become too dependent on a single foreign resource inevitably find themselves vulnerable. They become hostage to the very supply lines that once gave them strength. But the story doesn't end with a successful operation. For Venezuela, the path forward is fraught with peril. A new chapter begins, but it's not a fairy tale. The country is in ruins. Rebuilding its oil industry is a monumental task, a challenge on the scale of rebuilding a war-torn nation. PDVSA's infrastructure isn't just old, it's decayed, sabotaged by years of neglect and cannibalization. Refineries are husks. Pipelines are leaking. Supertankers are rusting in their ports. Experts estimate it will take over a decade and hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign investment just to return to pre-Chavez production levels. Who will provide this capital? American and European energy giants are lining up, eager for a piece of the world's largest oil reserves. But this influx of foreign capital carries its own risks, echoing the colonial-style arrangements of the past. Will the new deals benefit the Venezuelan people? Or will they simply enrich a new elite and their foreign partners, planting the seeds for the next cycle of resentment and conflict? The social fabric is just as damaged as the oil fields. A generation has grown up in chaos and deprivation. Millions who fled now face the difficult choice of whether to return to a homeland they barely recognize. Reintegrating these refugees, healing the deep political divisions, and establishing a stable, democratic society will be the work of generations. There's a real danger that the transition period could devolve into factional fighting, with various political leaders, military figures, and regional warlords vying for control of the oil wealth. A successful transition will require not just money, but immense international support, a commitment to justice for past crimes, and a genuine process of national reconciliation. Venezuela's story is a stark reminder that in the great game of geopolitics, there are no simple victories. The flow of oil may have been restored, but the future of a nation of 30 million people hangs precariously in the balance. Their struggle, and the world's dependence on the resources beneath their feet, will continue to shape the 21st century. Thank you for watching. If this story sparked your interest, be sure to like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the forces that shape our world. See you next time.